told you that I would show you how to make the best cup of coffee every morning without going to a cafe. So today I'm just going to take you through a simple French press brew. I'm going to just have the video muted. My roommates were kind of being loud in the background. And by roommates, I mean my mom and dad. So their phones were going off. My dad started playing a music video right when I was like, come on, Dad. But yeah, so just start the video here for you. So just to take you through some of the equipment real quick, I have a grinder here. I have the French press, which I just got off Amazon. It's the cheapest one. It's a 34 ounce, which most of the French presses are. And I have a kettle and a measuring spoon, my phone for a timer, stirring spoon, and then the bowl, which you won't really need it, but I just had it for the video. So to start out, I'm going to warm up my French press just by pouring in some boiling water. That's a little pro tip for you. Just that way your coffee is not losing so much heat when you actually do the brewing process, which can be a problem with a French press because it's just a thin glass wall. So that's why I have the bowl. I'm just going to dump that out. And after this, you're ready to measure out your coffee. So this is a 34 ounce French press, which is 8 cups in your normal Mr. Coffee brewer. So I'm going to do 1 tablespoon for every cup. So it's 8 tablespoons. You can play around with it based on how strong you like your coffee. I like it kind of strong, so I think I did 10 or 11. And the grind that I'm using for this French press is a coarse grind because a French press, it's not like a paper filter. It's a fine mesh screen that you're going to use to filter out the grounds. So you don't want really fine coffee. You want nice coarse coffee. And it's important to grind your coffee fresh right before you brew because coffee will actually go stale 4 hours after you grind it up if it's just exposed to the air. So buy your coffee beans, whole bean, and buy a grinder, and you want to grind that up right before you brew. And you don't see me grinding in the video because it just would have taken too long, and you guys wouldn't have wanted to see that. So I get my phone ready for the timer, and I'm just going to start that stopwatch right as I start to pour water. Now, a lot of people will tell you to just fill the French press up all the way. You don't want to do that. You'll see here that I'm saturating all the grounds, and I'm just going to fill it up halfway. And the reason that I do that is so that this process called the bloom can occur. And the bloom is when you're using fresh coffee beans like I am, there's a lot of gases inside the coffee, and it's CO2, and that CO2 will interfere with your brew process if it's not released. So you have to let the coffee bloom in order to get those gases out, and that's why you see all these bubbles here. So I'm just going to let that sit at the halfway point for a minute and let that bloom. And after it blooms, I'm going to take my metal spoon. It's actually better to use a wood spoon so you don't accidentally break your glass, but I didn't have a good wood spoon. So you're just going to break that crust that the coffee forms, and you're going to mix it in the coffee grounds, because if you just leave them sitting on top, they're not going to be evenly extracted because they're not going to be really saturated in the water. So you can see I'm at a minute 15 here, and I'm just going to fill it up the rest of the way. Now that the coffee is bloomed, the CO2 has been released. And so usually you want to let it brew for a full 4 minutes, but just for time's sake, I just did a 2.5 minute brew, but just know that in real life you're going to let it brew for 4 minutes. But so just while we're waiting for this coffee to brew, I'm just going to tell you, the 3 fundamentals for a good cup of coffee. You don't have to do a French press like I did. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but the 3 fundamentals are your brew method. So basically any brew method except a automatic machine, because an automatic machine, it has a dripper, and the drips are going straight down into your coffee grounds and not being spread out evenly, whereas a method like this gets all the coffee grounds saturated. So you can do a French press, you could do an AeroPress, or a pour over. I prefer a pour over because you have a lot of control over the entire process of the brew. The second thing that you need to have for a good cup of coffee is fresh ground coffee, because like I said, coffee will start to go stale 4 hours after it's ground. So buy your coffee whole bean, and grind it right there. And the third thing is that you're using freshly roasted coffee, because even if you're buying whole bean coffee, it'll start to go stale like 2 months after it's roasted. So you can see there, it's like at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I press my screen down so that it stops the brewing process. What that does is it pushes all the grounds to the bottom, and it separates the water from the coffee grounds, and it's not able to really brew. So right after that's done, you want to pour your coffee out into a cup, or you want to pour it into a carafe that's like double walled, because it does start to go cold pretty soon after that. So that's really it. And the best part about that is, like, you can play around with, however you want your coffee. And if you go to a cafe, they're going to make it how they want. But you just buy, invest $80 in coffee equipment, and you can have, like, seriously the best cup of coffee every morning. So that's it. That's all I have for you.